Hey everybody, what's up? It's Chase. Welcome to another episode of the Chase Jarvis Live Show here on Creative Live. You know the show. This is where I sit down with amazing humans and I unpack their brains to help you live your dreams in career, in hobby, and in life. My guest today is Mr. Austin Kleon, the best-selling author of books like Steal Like an Artist, Show Your Work, and his newest one called Keep Going, which we're going to talk about today. And today's episode is in front of a live in-studio audience, so we're not going to film that here. We film it in the middle of a church in a collaboration between Creative Live and the University of Washington in downtown Seattle. So we're going to go there right now. They love you.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for coming. Hi.
Yes, in the flesh. Well, first of all, this is what they call in show business a twofer, because we all get to experience this today, and we're also recording this to share with tens of thousands of people around the world. So clap loudly when it's time to clap, and laugh at Austin's jokes. No, honestly, thank you so much for creating this work. It's a treat to be able to talk to you about it and to share your wisdom with all the folks here. And can we just give him one more just shout out for his work? Like, all right, this is our third. It's our third time through this.
Third time's the charm.
Not with this book. We've had the good fortune because he does have two other books, which I will try and I'll cover a little bit of that ground. First of all, though, Keep Going. Where did you get the title?
Oh, geez. I haven't been asked that yet.
That's my job.
Well, I like how dumb the title is. You know, I like how simple it is. This is a title that just was kind of there from the beginning. It just seems sort of obvious. I also like how my titles keep getting shorter. So it's like, Steal Like an Artist, Show Your Work, Keep Going.
What's the next one?
Done.
Beautiful. No, but let's talk about the spirit of Keep Going.
Yeah.
And you capture it in the book, and I want to know a little bit firsthand here from you.
I just really wanted to quit a couple of years ago, you know, and it's funny because, like, I'm someone who encourages people, you know, that's, like, part of my job now. But you know, a few years ago, it just felt like the world was on fire, and everyone I knew was sort of going nuts. They were distracted and distraught, and on the other side of that, I just felt like, what's the point of making work in this climate? Like, what can my work do in sort of the face of all this? And then also, do I want to do this? Because you sort of hit that point where you're like, am I going to do this indefinitely? Like, do I want to be...
Don't have your fourth book called Done if you want to do it indefinitely.
Exactly, right? So, and I think... So Keep Going really was the first book I wrote because I needed to read it. You know, the other books were sort of, they had catalysts that were outside of me. You know, Steal Like an Artist was a talk that I was asked to give. Show Your Work was an obvious sequel to Steal Like an Artist, and it was based on questions that people asked me. And Keep Going is the first book where I was really like, I wanted to read this book because I felt like I needed it. And it felt different writing this one. It felt like it was, it felt a little more urgent. I used to make fun of people. They would come to me, like people would come up to me at readings sometimes, and they'd say, I just feel like I have a book in me. And I'd say, that sounds really painful. You should see a doctor, you know. Because usually books for me are like, they orbit. You know, they're kind of like, it's like a bunch of space junk that's orbiting me, and it's kind of colliding and turning into little moons and planets. Like chapters are like little moons that form out of the asteroid field or space junk or whatever. But this one felt a little internal, you know. The urge was internal, but I think a lot of the stuff I had to kind of reach out and, you know, because so many of my books are based in my reading habit, you know, and I think that a big reason that I'm a writer is so I can be a professional reader, you know, because that's really what I just want to get paid to read all day.
Awesome. Well, I have a few questions based on what you just said, but it reminded me that you all will probably develop questions throughout the course of the night, and we will have a little Q&A session at the end. But I also want to encourage, we do have there's a mic back there, and if you have a question, throw your hand up. I like to mix it up just a little bit, so feel free if he says something evocative you want to jump in, and I will call on you. So don't hesitate to throw your hand in the air. Going back to you, good sir. So if this was an internal piece of work and it's called Keep Going, and you wanted to stop, why did you want to stop, and what allowed you to keep going?
I'm a big believer in going away so you can come back. Like, I think that sometimes if you want to stop, you should stop. You should stop temporarily, And so life got a lot better for me when I just didn't worry about the next book. I was just like, I don't know if there's going to be a next book or not. What I'm going to focus on is coming up with a process for creating new work indefinitely. So part of writing, and this is in the book too, part of the writing of Keep Going was about trying to find some sort of daily practice for myself in which I could just create work indefinitely. So one of the things I started doing is I started like a plain old diary, just like a daily diary. And I just started doing the kind of Julia Cameron 3 morning pages thing, and then it would turn into 5 or 7 or 10, depending on the day. And so I started diarying or journaling, or that's a weird verb.
Diarying.
Diarrhea, diarying, mental diarying, diarrhea. That's awful. But then the other thing that happened, that was private. What was helpful for me with starting a diary was because all of my work is so public now, I needed a place to just be private, to have bad ideas. Like, I think diaries are good places to have bad ideas, and I think that's the glory of notebooks, is that they're private spaces in which you can figure out what you have to say or what you have to put in the world. But then I realized, I needed a public outlet too, and that's when I went back to daily blogging. Because when I first started blogging, it was like an everyday thing, and the game was every day you just like tried to figure out what you had to say, what you filled the thing with, And once I went back to daily blogging and keeping a diary, everything loosened up for me, and the book just became apparent like what the book was going to be.
So let's go one. Well, I love what you talk about. You talk about creativity as a daily habit. So let's uncover that or peel that back a little bit further for us. You talked about having a journal. You talked about your practice. What more specifically? You talk about having a routine. You talk about the journey between your house and your studio, which is all of 10 feet.
Yeah.
But
my 10-foot commute.
Yeah, but walk us through that. I think that's part of why people show up to either listen to this podcast or show up here in person is because they want to know a little bit more behind just what's in the book. And so talk to us a little about your process.
Well, so to give you an idea of my life, so I have, my wife is home with our boys, and I'm home with our boys. My boys are 6 and 4, so anyone who's a parent knows, like, that's insane. It's an insane time. And we are about, like, our parenting philosophy is the same philosophy I have as a creative person, which is there are very strict structures or routines, and then within that you can do what you want. So there's a strict bedtime, there's a strict, like, get up time. We do things at the same time every day, and like everything's pretty tight that way. But then everything's at your fingertips then. So like that's the same for me in the studio. Like it's a set time, and it's you go there, and then you can do whatever you want while you're there, but you got to be there.
What time is that time, and where is there?
So when life is normal and I'm not on the road, In Texas, you have to get out really early if you want to take a walk, and that's essential to us. So we get up early in the morning, we might have some breakfast, and then we stick the kids in a stroller and take them out on the walk. And we do that.
What time and how long do you, give me some detail here, bud. I'm trying to, these are essentials.
Well, the boys get up at 7, and so I would say we go for the walk at like 8, come back at 9.
Is this family discussion time? Like, what gets you primed for the day?
Well, the boys listen to music on headphones, and then my wife and I just talk the whole time, rant at each other, plan the day. The film director, Ingmar Bergman, he said, demons hate fresh air. So, like, that's what we try to do. We try to, like, let the demons out when we're, like, on our walk. And then let those out. And then we come back, and then I work until lunch. So then I go out to the studio right afterwards, work until lunch, and then we have lunch together. Owen goes to a half-day kindergarten, so he gets on the bus. And then, if I want to give my wife a break, I might hang out with our youngest for a while, and we'll draw or make marble runs or whatever he wants to do, sing Wheels on the Bus 100 times. Or actually, it's 10 in the bed. 10 in the bed is the thing that the 4-year-old is into. And then in the afternoon, so I adhere to John Waters' make things up in the morning and sell them in the afternoon. So the afternoon is when I do administrative stuff. So like if I have to make a phone call or email or whatever, whatever business-wise needs to be done. And then if my plate's free, I might write, but I probably will just read. And then I keep banker hours, so like 5 o'clock,
You're done.
And we eat together and put the kids to bed, and then 7 o'clock, watch TV, and we usually go to bed at like 9:30 or something, and I'll read until I fall asleep.
So Chuck Close, I'm paraphrasing here, but he said basically, if you only create when you're inspired, you're not going to create very much work.
Yeah.
So how much of that routine, and you talked about writing in the morning, how much of your success do you attribute to just sitting down and sitting in front of the page and just moving your pen over the paper?
I'd say all of it. I mean, I get ideas when I'm doing other things, and that's why I have this with me all the time, my pocket notebook. I mean, that's one of the things that I've discovered with kids is it's great to play with kids because you get all these ideas, and I'm happy because I actually am able to capture them. So I'm constantly scribbling stuff throughout the day, but then I don't do anything with the notebook until the morning. I wait until the next morning, and then I look at my notebook and see what's interesting, and then I use that I always have a starting point in the morning, because there's always something interesting in my notebook.
This is getting good.
Right?
Okay.
So, I keep the notebook all day, and then I don't have to sit there and look at the blank page when I come to my diary, which is in a totally different notebook. I didn't bring that, of course, but it's back at the hotel. But I really want to make sure that I'm never looking at a blank page, because I always have something to get started with.
That's important.
And if I don't have anything to get started with, sometimes that's when I'll make a collage. I do a lot of collaging in my notebook.
Yeah, that was a question. So when you sit down and do the work, some is collage, some is newspaper blackout, some is drawing. What's the mix, and how do you decide?
That's the freedom. That's the not planned part. That's the not knowing part, I know I'm going to sit down, but I don't know necessarily what I'm going to do for sure. And so collage is where I go when I'm bottomed out, when I don't want to write and I don't want to draw, and I don't really want to make anything up. Collage is really when I get ideas, and it's also just I was making collages on the train here from Portland. I like to take the comics page And I like to cut the dialogue off of one comic and then stick it on another comic. That's like my version of the crossword puzzle, basically. And I actually think that way about a lot of the art that I do. Like, I think that the newspaper Blackout work, which, if y'all don't know, I take a newspaper article and I circle a couple of words and form them into little funny phrases or sayings, and then I black out the rest. It looks like if the CIA did haiku, basically. But you know, those kind of started as a way to like kind of kill time on my commute and like at lunch at my day job. You know, they were kind of they were like writer's block exercises. And then my wife saw them and she was like, "These are finished pieces. Like, you should put these on your blog." You know, and so it's important to have playtime. You know, like it's important to do stuff that you're not really sure what it's going to be, or it's sort of like R&D time or something. You know, like you have to have time to just putter around as an artist, because otherwise you won't find the next thing that you're supposed to do.
You just used the word artist, so I'm going to go back to your first book, Steal Like an Artist. Are you still, obviously that was a controversial phrase, borrowed from some other artists and aggregated into your own, but talk to me about how the role that still plays in your work today, and yeah, just give me a little bit of backstory there.
Well, sometimes people come up to me at readings and they're like, "Steal Like an Artist changed my life, man." I'm like, "Cool, it changed mine too." You know, I mean, it was kind of, when I made Steal Like an Artist, I was 27. And I think that book has the audacity of youth behind it. I couldn't write that book now. And I think people were like, "What do you mean you couldn't write that book now?" I couldn't write that book now because I'm a different me. That's not to say that I don't love it and I stand behind it. It's just, you know, I think that book has that kind of youthful blast of energy that like a first album from a band has. It's like, you know, first albums of bands are great because they've had like 10 years of playing and writing music behind them, so like all the songs are really good, you know? So Steal Like an Artist was like that for me. It was like a buildup of everything I'd been doing for like 10 years. And so that book now, I think, you know, my only trouble with Steal Like an Artist is people forget the like an artist part. You know, they just hear the word steal and they're like, "Oh, cool, I can steal stuff." And it's like, that's not what the book is about. I actually think it's a very, you know, it's an ancient concept. It's right there in Ecclesiastes. You know, here we are in the Methodist Church, like, there's nothing new under the sun, you know. And they stole, you know, the writer of Ecclesiastes stole that from the Egyptians. So, like, you know, this is a very ancient idea, and I actually think that, the thing about Steal Like an Artist is it's dressed up as this kind of hip, like kind of subversive looking book, but it's actually a very traditional message. Like, it's what artists have always done. You study what came before you, you take little bits and pieces of the stuff you love, and you turn it into your own thing, something new that then, you know, it's like a big gumbo, and you add your little bit to the mix, you know. So I actually think that Steal Like an Artist is a fairly, I mean, I think it's a traditional message. I think what it does is it's a book that the book operates based on the content. Like, the message of the book is how the book works, because it's this kind of mashup or collage of all these different ideas and stuff that I borrowed from other people. So, you know, I think that's, it's weird, like, what do you do with old books? Like, because when you finish them, it's like, that was you, and they're like, books are like time machines, you know, they're almost like time capsules. They're crystallizations of thought at a certain moment, you know? And so it's sort of like, when I look at those books, it's like visiting me in the past, you know? So
You still
weird.
look good, though.
Yeah, you know, oh.
How many folks in the audience identify as a creator? As in, you create something either in your part-time or lot of hands. I'm going to put that at 80%. So a really popular question in these sorts of environments is like, what would some advice that you would give to your younger self? I'm not going to ask that question. I'm going to ask, what advice would you give to the 100 people that just raised their hand?
Oh, man. Just like general advice. Wow.
Brush your teeth.
Well, let me get behind the pulpit
creative
here.
Advice. You're telling them to...
Let me... I think everyone just needs to go easier on themselves. I think we live in a culture right now in which if you're not doing something at every moment of the day, if you're not monetizing your time, if you're not being productive, if you're not churning out, if you're not getting likes, if you're not getting retweets, blah, 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 blah. Like, everyone needs to just chill out, take a walk, take a breath, breathe in, and like, life is not about, it's about living. And creative work is supposed to make life better. And I think there's a lot of people that drive themselves nuts trying to make stuff, and that's not what it's supposed to be about. I mean, God, if we went into work all day, just become an accountant or something, and then you can quit at 5 o'clock, I mean, if you just want to, if there's not joy in the work, what joy is anyone going to get from it? And I just think everyone just needs to take a step back and just breathe and think about what you really want to do with your time on this earth. Because I think that's the thing for me, that these chaotic times, it's so awful, but it brings it, the message of human life has always been the same, is what are you going to do with your days? How are you going to spend the time you get here? And I just think it becomes clear when you really just empty your mind and you're like, what do I want to do? I think it becomes clear. I think the answer. You're just you're waiting for, someone to say it's okay for that to be the answer.
That's what I was hoping you're doing to them right now.
I hope so. I hope that you've got that thing in the back of your mind that you're this is what I want to do with my days. And I think whatever it is, it's maybe if it's drinking whiskey and watching House Hunters all day, maybe not. But, that thing that you want to spend your time on that, makes you feel alive, that's the thing to do.
Whiskey and House Hunters?
Yeah, that's 7 o'clock for me. 7 o'clock comes around, it's whiskey and House Hunters time. My wife loves HGTV. She's probably going to watch this. I shouldn't make fun of her.
7 in the morning is pretty early to start with a whiskey.
7 p.m.
Oh, okay.
7 p.m.
Okay, good.
12-hour days, which is actually pretty, that's manageable. The kids get up at 7, they go to bed at 7. That's it.
Talk to me and to the people listening and watching about airplane mode.
So airplane mode.
This is a concept that's in the book that it's beautiful.
So there's an artist named Nina Kachadorian who I think the world of, and one of her projects is called Seat Assignment. And what she does is she takes these very long plane rides and she makes art out of whatever she packed for her trip and whatever's on the airplane. So she'll take the in-flight magazine photos and sprinkle salt on them and make ghost images, and then she'll photograph those with her camera phone. Or she'll fold her sweater up into gorilla faces and then take pictures of it. Or she'll go in the bathroom and use the toilet seat covers and toilet paper. She'll make herself into in the style of old Flemish paintings, and then she'll take selfies. So it's she basically has figured out a way to take this device that, kind of these little black rectangles we carry around now, that she's found a way to turn that into an art-making machine instead of a distraction machine. And the key ingredient is airplane mode, right? You can't get a cell signal on the plane. And so I was thinking about it, and I was airplane mode doesn't have to just be for the airplane. Airplane mode can be a way of life. And I think that, if you want to get focused and really do your work, I mean, the easiest thing in the world to do is switch your phone into airplane mode, and you're immediately disconnected. And it's just like, it's a relief, the minute you do it. It's so easy, but it's just like airplane mode. Click.
How much of that story is about doing what you can with what you have rather than false barriers to starting?
Well, Nina was she was a student of Alan Capral, and Capral talked about constraint. Like, constraint was a big deal to him as a teacher, and he was also a big proponent of taking what's in your everyday life, and that's enough. Like, whatever's around you is enough for your work. And I think this is the equation for me is you take ordinary life and you add extra attention and you find the extraordinary. So you take the ordinary and you give it extra attention, and that leads to the extraordinary. And if you think about like the history of 20th century art, I mean, that was what a lot of it was. It's like you take a Campbell soup can and you point your attention at it and you change the world. That's it. And I think art at its highest level is about you figure out how to help other people see the world the way you do. So if you go to a David Hockney show and you spend a couple of hours with David Hockney's paintings, you come outside at the end and you see the world like David Hockney. And that's the magic. That's what it's about.
How do you want people to see the world after consuming your book, Keep Going?
I think with my books, I want, with Keep Going, I mean, I want them to think about time I want them to reconfigure themselves time-wise. Like, I think it's a book, I think fundamentally it's a book about time, because in the beginning of the book, it's like, hit the brakes. Don't worry about yesterday, don't worry about tomorrow, like, focus on today. It's like the AA, one day at a time thing. It's sort of like, the book sort of starts out like stopping the bleeding, it's like, stop the bleeding, like, focus on right now, focus on the day, focus on how you can get your days in order. And then by the end of the book, I'm talking about seasons, and I'm talking about seasonal time and how, creative careers have seasons, and some of us bloom very early, and then some of us bloom very late. And some of us bloom, and then we bloom again, and then we morph and mutate, and, some of us have 5 acts, and to know what your seasons are and to have that kind of, so the book starts out and you're like about the immediate, like, time right now, like the day. But then by the end of the book, I'm asking you to think about the long term. And so I think it's a book about time in a lot of ways. And I want people to realize that the day is all they've got in some ways, like today is all you have, but also to think, to have the perspective of time, because I think when you start thinking, big picture, it really puts things in perspective.
All right, I'm going to take a couple questions from the audience in just a second, so prepare those questions, and I'm going to go back to something you just mentioned, which is seasons.
Yeah.
What season are you in right now?
Well, the harvest is in right now,
I mean, not physically. I mean, I know it's April.
Yeah.
Is it April? Is that right? Yeah, it's April.
But, I mean...
as an artist, where are you in the arc?
I mean, long term, I don't know. I'm supposed to know.
Wait, man, isn't that a theme of the book you just wrote?
I guess I'm supposed to know. I don't think of it in... I think in terms of book cycles now. So, like, if you're a farmer, and if I'm a farmer and like the crop is in, and now I'm taking it to the farmer's market, and like winter's coming, and I'm gonna have to, I mean, this tour will end eventually, and then I'll have to store up, and I'll have to, recalibrate. I'm 35, so I'm not very old yet, but I'm old enough that things are I'm approaching like middle age, So but I do think that with this book, I think the three books answer each other. I think they talk to each other. I do sort of think of them as a trilogy. So it is time for me to figure out like what's next. But I just feel really grateful now because I just have this. I know what I'm going to do tomorrow, and I know what I'm going to do the day after that. Like I just know what I'm going to do with my life now. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to keep this notebook in my pocket, and I'm going to wake up tomorrow, and I'm going to write my diary, and then I'm going to make a blog post. And if I do that enough, another book will show up. And that's just going to be my life for a while.
Are you scared about not having an understanding of what the next step is for you?
I was before I wrote this, but now I know that if I work the way that works for me, and I think that's what I want people to really take away from the book, is to find your way of working that sustains you indefinitely. Because once you find that, it will take you through, and you might have to readjust at certain points, but to find a perpetual system for making work, I think, is just the most powerful thing. And this is why, the real guardian spirits of the book were like, I was watching all these documentaries about senior citizen artists, basically. Like I was watching, I was reading about David Hockney, and he was saying things like, I'll go on until I fall over. I was watching the Bill Cunningham documentary about how he'd hop on his bicycle and take pictures and way well into his 80s. I was watching even the Joan Rivers documentary, where she's had her joke file. And Joan Rivers is interesting because she'd just blow all her money, and that kept her working because she had to keep making money. She had her system down, So I was just looking at these people and just thinking like, I just want to be one of these people. I want to get old if I can, and I want to keep working.
Beautiful. Show of hands. I saw a couple folks put the hand in the air just a second ago when I said a question. Anyone? Nothing? You want me to keep going?
There's one over there.
Yep. All right. So if we don't have anyone to run a mic, so if you would relay your question to me, I will speak it into the microphone so you don't have to get up. Please go ahead and ask. Well, first of all, tell us who you are. Hi, Rachel.
My question is, how do you go from that really cool notebook that you carry around to the getting it on the paper when you actually have a chance to be with it? Do you ever find yourself in a place of losing the inspiration somewhere along the way? And if you do, what do you do?
All right, I'll recite for the folks who are listening at home. Rachel's question was, you've talked at several times already about the notebook that you carry around with you. How do you, when you translate that to a more formal work or to another notebook, or you sit down in the morning as you've described to us, and is there a world where you lose inspiration? You feel like that?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, I'll find notes that I'm just like, what does this mean? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, what is this? And, I just let it go, because I figure if it's good enough, I would remember. I think the reason I write the day after I take the notes, first of all, I stole that. I'm not very original. Like, that was... David Sedaris does that. That's how David Sedaris works. He just keeps a notebook all day, and then he writes in his diary the next morning. And there's something about time as an editor. Like, time is a great editor. It filters out the things that are worthy and worth not. I mean, you know that from taking photos. Yeah. It's like you don't know right away what's a great image until you come back to the image after 24 a week or maybe even a month.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I mean, I'm not a good photographer, but I've noticed that some of the photos, you probably have experienced that. If you're of the age where you took photos before digital, you'll go back through. You used to get photos from the drugstore or whatever, and you'd put them in albums, but then you go back through the package and you'll find a great one. Yeah. That was in that package, and you're like, why didn't I put this in the album? And I also think photography is interesting because the things that are the most mundane in photos now will be the very thing you want to see in 50 years. Like some car now, you'll be like, ugh, that car's in the way. But like in 50 years, you'll want to see the car.
Yeah, like if you had a picture of a Pinto right now, you'd be stoked.
Right? Totally. But like in 19s, whatever, it would have been a bummer.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel, for the question. If you have some other questions, go ahead and shoot your hand up. I'll come back to you. In the meantime, so we touched a little bit on Steal Like an Artist. Let's go to show your work.
Yeah.
And as someone who's followed you since basically the internet, since you started writing in your blog, to me that was a really interesting point in your career, just from my observations at a distance. And I want you to either confirm or deny that that was a turning point for you because you had laid bare your style of working. Yeah. And now, do you feel like you're in a different mode there? Are you sharing more or less? Because it seems to me like you're sharing a little bit, you tightened up a little bit. So where is that in your process from the concept and actual practice?
What I was trying to do in Show Your Work is I was trying to unite the need for self-promotion with the need for making work. And they're very different beasts. And I was trying to find the thing that, what I was trying to figure out, like, well, what does the artist care about that I think the audience cares about too? And how can you use that shared thing in the Venn diagram to have, like, again, a system of promoting yourself? And what I came up with was process. I felt like process is the thing that, traditionally that's what you're supposed to keep hidden. You're not supposed to show anybody what you're working on. But I just think, my generation in particular, it's like we were all raised on DVD extras and like behind the scenes footage and stuff. And I just think that, like, when you follow an artist, how they work is really fascinating. And so I think that if you can find, the point of the book was, can you find little daily bits and pieces of your process that you can show people as you're working that doesn't take too much from the process itself? It's kind of a dancing act. It's a dance. And I think what Show Your Work is also about is it's about learning in public. It's about kind of having the courage to share what you're learning and working on as you go. I do think it was written in a more optimistic time for social media. I'm not sure if I would write, I think the principles are pretty much the same, but I think if I was going to rewrite it now, I might focus on more community-based platforms for sharing. Like, I think the way people have patrons now, is that how you say it, or Patreon? Patreon accounts, like, people will give them a little bit of money and then they'll send them updates as you go. Or I think newsletters are great places to share. Just platforms in which strangers can't, like, yell at you as much as, But I think fundamentally the idea that sharing your process is incredibly powerful as a marketing device. I think I still really believe in that.
Why? Not why do you believe, why is it powerful?
I think when people actually see the work that goes into what you do, I think it makes the work more valuable. I think there's a lot of creative work that people are like, oh, well, you must just like come up with something and splatter it on the canvas. I think when you do skilled work, there's a lot that goes into it that people just don't see. And I think that it adds a lot of value. I think seeing the sausage get made, if the process is good and the sausage is tasty, and the perfect example, I think, is Aaron Franklin, who runs Franklin Barbecue in Austin. When I was writing Show Your Work, he was working on a show where he took people through every stage of the barbecue process. And I just thought, this is barbecue. Isn't this about, like, secret sauce and, like, secrets of the trade and stuff? And he was like, dude, this is smoking meat. He's like, and I can show you how to do it, but it's going to take you 10 years to be able to do it yourself. And by the time you see all that goes into making a Franklin brisket, you'll pay the $20 a pound that he's charging, you know?
Do you remember that was the last time we were together? We were eating Franklin barbecue in
That was
Austin. Yeah, that's how much he really likes it. No, I think there's a Debbie Millman tells a story, and you're friends with Debbie, who's also a fantastic designer, about I think it was maybe Polishare. She designed one of the fancy logos, maybe Citibank or Visa or something, and she did it in like 2 minutes on like literally a napkin, and charged. I'm maybe paraphrasing a little bit here, but charged a very substantial fee, as one should. And someone said, well, it took you 2 minutes to do that. And she said, yeah, 2 minutes and 34 years.
Yeah. And there's that story gets told in many forms. There's also like, Picasso's and, there's another way that story goes where it's like Picasso's in a park and some lady asks him for a doodle of her dog and he makes it, whips it out. And she says, that's so great. He says, $5,000 or whatever. Madam, it's taken, and she said, well, it took you a second to, draw this. Madam, it's taken me my whole life, so that's.
Sounds very Picasso.
Yeah.
We're going to go to a question in the audience here. That'd be great. And we've got a microphone coming at you. Be there in 3, 2, 1. And first thing, tell us who you are.
Hi, my name is Pam.
Awesome. Can you stand up so we can see and hear you? Awesome.
Hi. I have a question about this current book. You said that you wrote this book because you needed it. Is there anything that you discovered as you were writing it that was a surprise to you? Like, I didn't know I thought that.
I think, the biggest thing that I discovered, I hope this isn't a cop-out answer, is just that, like, I really love doing this. Like, I'm really, like, I've gone through this thing now where I'm like, writing books isn't a burden for me anymore. I mean, it's like what I want to do with my life. I mean, it's what I've always wanted to do. And it's like, this one I felt like I knew what I was doing. That doesn't mean it was easy. I was like, this is what you're supposed to do, and I'd been waiting for that feeling. I've been waiting for that feeling like you're supposed to do this. And I think that was the biggest surprise to me. Because, I've got confidence issues just like anyone else. I feel like a phony all the time. That doesn't end. People talk about imposter syndrome. It's like, it never ends. You're always waiting for someone to pound on the door. It's the police. We're taking it all back, you fraud. But yeah, I think that was the big shocker for me, is it's like, I can do this, man. This is the show. We're doing it. It's like lacing up and getting back on the court or something, It's like, we're doing this. So that was fun. Yeah, I think that's it.
Awesome. Great question. Thank you for sharing. And if you have others, please throw your hand up in the air. We've got one in 4 rows back there. If we can pass the mic over, that would be awesome. Put your hand up, or stand up, even better. And please, again, tell us who you are and let us welcome you.
Hey, my name is Luke, and I have 2 questions, so you can pick your favorite one, maybe. You are physically present here, which is awesome, and we live in the world of the internet, which you utilize wonderfully. And so I'm just curious to see how you reconcile and value being in Seattle, or anywhere for that matter. And then the second question would be, you're 35, what advice do you have for somebody who's a younger artist to make money? And to be really transparent about that, to eat something other than ramen? Yeah.
Awesome question. Thank you, Luke.
I am probably not the most inspiring person when it comes to making money, because my heroes all had day jobs. Like when I started out, I wanted to be a poet, and poets don't make money. So like William Carlos Williams was a doctor. Philip Larkin ran a library. Wallace Stevens ran the insurance company. So I really felt like I would always have a day job. And the lottery ticket came in, and here we are, but it could go away too. I mean, they take away the ACA, and I don't have health insurance. And what do I do? I mean, I might take a job because I got 3 people that need me to, So I think, that's always in the back of my mind. I mean, that this could end, and I'll have to do something else. So I'm not the most inspiring person when it comes to money. I've always felt like there's always going to be something that's makes the money. I feel like every artist has something that it's very rare for you to do raw art and really make money. There's always some sort of hustle aspect. My friend Hugh McLeod calls it the sex and cash theory. Whereas there's the sexy part, and that's the fun part, but then there's always the cash part that actually makes all the money. So I've always felt like if you want to be really weird and wild in your art, then you got to get it subsidized somehow. And the easiest way to do that is to have a side gig or a day job. But your first question was more is really interesting to me. What is the role of place? We're in this weird time now where the internet has really changed a lot of the design of our spaces, and that every freaking store looks the same in every city now. You probably follow people online where they travel to a different city and they find the store that looks exactly like the city they were just in, the white walls with the wood, Instagram-y. I actually really love being in this church right now because it's not Instagram friendly, right? It's a church. It reminds me of, it's
Church.
It's church, and it is what it's supposed to be. And so these spaces are sort of disappearing. We were in that complex where the Amazon store is, the bookstore, and it just looks like every other complex in a new development, And it's cool, it looks flashy and stuff, but it's it doesn't have the same, look at the exit signs in this church, It's just and over here, it's just we're losing some of that local flavor, and so it's weird. I think that's why people like ruin porn. You know what I'm saying? All those photos of Detroit and Cleveland, where stuff is bombed out and stuff. I think people like that because those spaces are kind of disappearing in cities like Seattle, which are doing so well economically, well for certain people, right? But it's interesting to try to find these spaces. I think we were talking before you went on in Seattle about how you can always see water here, and what a wonderful thing that is, wherever you are in the city. And it's fun to find the character in cities because it's disappearing. I think the internet has homogenized culture in a way that's really depressing. It was in the beginning, the internet was hey, find the other freaks like you, right? Because you get on a chat room for weirdos and all the other weirdos showed up, But, now it's kind of this mass culture, and I'm wondering, I personally think that kids right now, I guess kids just play Fortnite or whatever, I don't really understand it, but I think if you really wanted to be subversive right now as a kid, you'd start some sort of club that didn't have any kind of social media presence. You start some sort of club where you hung out and did whatever and didn't tell anyone about it. That seems really subversive to me now, right? Doing something super private.
I'm going to drill in just a little bit further because I really appreciated both those questions. On the physicality, let's go one level deeper. What is it you being in this place with people who've showed up as opposed to just communicating digitally? Does it resonate? Is it scarier? Is it safer? How do you feel?
Well, you can see people falling asleep, and then you can see people laughing. It's immediate. It's human. We're all here together, and later on we'll talk, I'll sign books, and like you can't replace this, you know. And this is what we have. I mean, this is all we've got, really. I mean, because the other stuff isn't really real. And I think that it's weird because we're taping this, and this will be online. So, like,
Did you say tape?
Are we? Yeah.
Anyone have any tape?
But I don't know. I mean, like, the space between human beings that's what, and I really think it's interesting because so much, I grew up in a Methodist church, so I'm having this moment right now of like, I mean, I hated getting drugged to church every week, but I'm remembering now what it was like to stand up and sing together and like, and to hear the choir and to be in the same space with people. You know, I mean, these are things that, like, you just can't replicate. So I think it's cool.
That's beautiful. We're going to go to the second question, too, or maybe it was the first one. I forgot the order now, but I think it was the first one. Making money. I think you glossed over a little bit, and I want to drill deeper. Like,
Okay.
Presumably, you want to know how to make more money. Is this right? He's big nod from Luke. Okay. So you have a process. Were you discovered? Did you seek publishers? Is this? Yep, he's nodding. He was like, I want to know more. So how did it work for you, and what do you recommend for him?
I really, my agent would love me to write the money book, like, for creative people. I don't have a lot of advice for money. Like, people do it better than I do. I think you play to your strengths. I just was like, my thing in the beginning was like, I can afford some web space, so I can have my domain name, and I can have my website, and I fund that, and I was just like, this is the show. If people show up, they show up. You know, when I did newspaper Blackout, an editor asked me if I wanted to do that book. When Steal Like an Artist, when that went viral, I had an agent that I had already kind of talked to, and I said, do you want to help me do this? You know, but I just didn't go after it the way that I could have, but that's just my style, you know, so I just don't have a lot of advice for money.
Is it fair if I summarize? Can you nod at least if you're not going to give any more advice? The summary is if you're doing your thing and you're doing what you say, steal like an artist, and you're showing your work and you continue going, you keep going, is that the formula that you've adopted? Or is it something different?
I think that's the formula for doing meaningful work. I mean, I think that's the formula for making your art. That's the formula for having a meaningful creative life. I don't know if it's the path to making money. You know what I mean? I mean, a lot of my heroes died penniless, so I don't,
Be careful what you wish for.
I mean, Thoreau didn't die with a bunch of money, you know? I mean, Emily Dickinson, I don't think had a lot of these people, David Hockney's filthy rich, but,
Okay, we've got about somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes, so we're going to accelerate the questions. Go ahead and put your hands up. I'm going to just know that you've got a couple. I'm spotting you out in the crowd. I'm going to come back to you. I wanted to go back to some inspiration. You've mentioned to several people through the course of our conversation. You're so good at reciting quotes and names. And who are you paying attention to right now? Whose email newsletter? Because we were talking about that before we went on stage, and you've mentioned it a couple times here. Share so that we can also subscribe.
I mean, I pay attention to women. I just think I think there are some. I tend to think that the most thoughtful writers right now are women. And as far as newsletters go, I like Anne Friedman's newsletter a lot. It's a fun one. But then I have some people that I follow that you might not have heard of.
That's what I'm looking for.
There's some. I don't know. I mean,
I don't want you to, if you're reluctant to name names.
I listen to dead people. Really. Who wants to read an email newsletter? I mean, there's a few newsletters that are okay, but read dead people. That's who I listen to. one of the people that I think everyone in this room should read, because you live in a city where technology is like, this is like the heart of a lot of technology, is you should read Ursula Franklin's The Real World of Technology, because that was a book that really influenced this book. She was a feminist, metallurgist woman who wrote, a Quaker, who did these series of lectures. She was Canadian, and she wrote these series of lectures about technology, and they are just still really great. And she really influenced me. Tove Jansson, who did the Moomins. The Moomins are sort of what I want my family to be like. Henry David Thoreau. I think people roll their eyes at Thoreau, but like if you read Thoreau's journals, he's like, he lives with his parents, he's overeducated, he's upset about the government, he loves plants. He's basically a millennial. So the dead left us this stuff. We are lucky enough to have this. Life wasn't that different. Thoreau used to complain about reading a weekly newspaper. And he said, I can't read this weekly newspaper. It's taking me away from my walks. Like, I can't concentrate. Gertrude Stein was like, we get so much information all day that we lose our sense. People have everything that you are struggling with right now. Some dead person went through it, and they probably wrote about it. There is wisdom out there. That's why you got to read books that are more than 5 years, 25 years old. You got to go past the latest, article. But dead people, that's who I listen to.
Or we'll get your book.
Or get my book, because there's a bunch of dead people in there.
All right, we're going to take a question from the front row here, and then I'm going to come over here to, there was one over there. Yep, thank you. There's two more over there. Great. It's like an auction, and do I have a three? Good, sir.
My name is Casey, and I have 4 kids, and I'm 37.
And you're upright, so you're doing great. So give a hand to Casey.
Yeah.
Seriously.
All in this together, folks.
For those of us who have day jobs and side hustles and all these projects and stuff that we're working on, and we have difficulty in finding and making time to be creative without pressure, or within constraints, but without the pressure of having to make money for it, how do you make time and find time to be creative when you have 4 kids and 5 clients to juggle?
Lower your standards. There's only so much to do. And it's like you prioritize. And for me, my kids are much more important to me than my work. They just are. And they're not going to be kids forever. And I want them to see me working, because I want them to know what it's like to be around an adult who does meaningful work. Because I feel like, when you're around that, you can't. I think kids need to be in the presence of adults working. Like, I think one of the things I don't like about school is that you're in a room full of a bunch of other kids and you're not really in the world. I think a lot more kids could benefit from being around people that work. The problem is that a lot of us don't do work that seems very, what are you going to do? Sit next to me at my desk and so that's why I love, I personally feel really lucky because, I do things that, like, my son Owen can observe. Like, he can see me. That's why I write my notebook. I don't use the computer. Like, I want him to see me. We try to read physical books in the house, because I want him to see me doing something. You know what I mean? That's so I just feel like I think one way to do creative work with kids is to parallel play, is to figure out how you can play together in the same room. And so if you can come up with some sort of project where you can do while you're still hanging out together. So I bring Owen in the studio with me, and I have since he was really little, and he was in the studio with me. And it's funny, he was in the studio with me when I was writing this book, and he was doing his thing, and I was doing mine, and I said, okay, honey, it's time to go inside and have dinner. He said, what did you work on today, Papa? And I was like, what do you mean, dude? I was working on the book. And he's like, I've been working on for the past 2 months. He said, didn't look like you were working on a book. Looked like you were working on your computer. And it's like, oh yeah, But I just think as much as you can, like, just try to figure out a way to integrate it. Although sometimes you need that time away from the kids. And so maybe the answer is to get up real early before they're up even, or stay up late. I don't know. 4 kids, yeah. No, I get up at 4. You get up at 4? Then, I mean, dude, you sound like you're doing it right. Like, man, you don't need my help. I got 2. 4, I'm like, oh, bless you.
Thank you very much. Good. We're going to shift over here. We've got the lady right there with her hand up. Yep, please stand up. Tell us who you are.
Hi, I'm Teresa, and I'm also an author. And my question is actually more for Chase, but it's great that it piggybacks off his. I don't have any kids, but I still don't have time. So I have a full-time job. I work 10-hour days, and I have a million ideas. I have literally 29 books I want to write before I die so far, and I've published 3, but I still have, like I said, 29. I've got inventions. I've got business, brick and mortar places I want to do. I have so many creative things. So my question is, how do you focus? And more for Chase, you went from photographer to creative live. I can't even look at the creative live thing because I see all these classes I want to take and I get so excited. I'm like, I want to do that, and I literally have bought so many classes that
Well, thank you.
because I get so excited. And I went to Photo Week and just being around those creative people at Photo Week. I mean, I felt like I was vibrating being around all these creative people. And then I keep going. I'm like, I'm going to go crazy with all my ideas. Taking a step back and stopping to focus without sounding, I mean, is there any non-cliche answer to focusing? I hate when somebody says, well, do one thing until it's done and then do the next thing. I can't.
That's what you need to do.
Yeah.
I mean, you hate it because it's the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, you hate it because it's the truth. I mean, you got to pick the most important. You got to look at the 29, and I'm going to do that one till it's done. Or pick 2 and procrastinate, on one with the other. I mean, I think this is really interesting to me because I don't have any ideas, right? Like, I've got the opposite problem. Like, I don't have any ideas. I'm looking for an idea to work on, right? Like, I don't go around with a bunch of ideas for projects, so it's always interesting to me to hear that. I mean, it sounds like maybe you've got better advice.
No.
You gotta, pick one. Like, what's the one? For me, like, the thing that blew my mind, you asked earlier what I learned on this book. The Annie Dillard thing where she says, spend it all. She's like, spend it all right now. Like, whatever you're working on right now, just spend it all because it'll regenerate. Like, that was this book. I was like, I'm throwing everything in here. Like, I'm just going for it. I'm not holding, I'll save that for the other book. I was like, nope, it's going in this one. And I think, like, you need to pick the one that you've got to do next, and you spend it all, and then you do the next one. I know that's not what you want to hear, but, like, I just think, like, that's what people are telling you, and, like, that's what we've all got to do. We got to pick the one thing, You pick the kid, like, you got to prioritize.
Tough love here.
I don't know.
I think it's actually a fear mechanism. That is, if you do half of a lot of things and you do nothing completely, and then you can never be judged for that work that you put out there. And so my heartfelt advice to you is listen to what Austin said and try, because that's the hard stuff. Ideas, what is it? Ideas are cheap and abundant. Execution is everything. And the ability to carry a book from concept to completion. I can't, the circles under my eyes, those dark circles, that's from Creative Live.
But you've done 3, so, I mean, you can do another one. Just do it. And then do another one after that.
Yeah, and that's, there's a momentum when you find that you can actually carry an idea and be successful and get it out in the world, regardless of how it's received. If success is defined as completion of an idea, that's what it feels like to be a creator. And repeat. All right, we got time for, we're going to go to that question and then one more after it. So, you were quick on the draw over there. It's going to go to you, fine sir. But before then, please stand up, share us with your name, and ask Austin a question.
Hi, my name's Luis. Quick shout out to Luke for his question from TimberTax. He's always shows up in the community. He's a great tax accountant. If you're creative in this world, see this guy. He is the man. Yeah,
It's the right season for that.
That's right.
I'm surprised he's
Right,
here.
you got a bunch of creatives. You're going to make hundreds.
And upright and yeah.
but my question is, we have, Austin, you and Chase have had several conversations over your books over the years with Chase Jarvis Live podcast. It's been great, and now here tonight, do you have any question that you would ask Chase in the spirit of your most recent book or any other thing you've had?
I could ask him, but then I'd have to kill you. How did you pick where you live?
My dad went to Ballard High School about 10 blocks from here.
Yeah.
Like, and reality is I travel a lot for my living, as a photographer and with Creative Live. Both those involve a lot of travel. I get to see a lot of places. I truly love it here. It's a great mix. Well,
That's why I asked, because I know you love it here.
Yeah, crazy people moved west, and then even crazier people went north from there.
Yep.
And so, like, the people who ended up here, I really like those. These are my people.
I mean, you had to be crazy if you weren't here, if you weren't a native.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to be crazy to come to this continent anyway.
Yeah, for sure. And then Alaska is just too much. You don't go all the way up there. I thank you for acknowledging that we do have a lot of other conversations. I appreciated you for saying that if you want to know more about my work, look at this interview that we'd done a long time ago. Yeah. Part of what you do so well is articulate in very plain English what's going on in your head and your heart and sharing it with us. So this book is a magnificent display of that. It's so simple and honest and like just exactly like the questions that you've answered tonight. So I want to say thank you for that. And then I do want to go to one last question before we break for book signing, because we're at an hour. And it's this gentleman right here with the glasses standing up. Excellent. Remind us who you are and fire off a question for Austin.
My name is Jeffrey, and my question for you has to do with all of the undoneness. I'm a creative entrepreneur, and I just feel burdened by all the things that are undone. And I was actually just reading a couple of pages, like the first pages in your book, and I think you get to it. But I was curious, how do you carry the weight of all the things that are undone and stay present in the things that you're supposed to be working on each day when you know that that list is always going to have undone things on it?
Yeah, Getting Things Done is a classic for a reason. The David Allen book, that was kind of an influence. I think that's in the back of that book. You get skeptical of bestsellers. You get skeptical of books that everyone reads because you're like, people tell me that about Steal Like an Artist. A guy actually told me that about Steal Like an Artist today. I did this podcast interview, and he's like, yeah, I figured that book sucked, and then enough people told me about it, and I read it, and I liked it. But I have to admit, I found David Allen's Getting Things Done in a Goodwill for $1, and I picked it up, and it's much more zen than I thought. It's not just like he looks so buttoned up on the cover, like he looks just like a business guy, but it's very like zen, and it's very much about like prioritizing so you have time to work on what you want to work on. And he's a guy who has keep different lists. So keep your undone stuff on one list and write it down so it's there on the list, but then put that list away and then have the list for today. I'm a writer, so I believe in the power of writing things down and getting stuff out of your head. That's really the big point of David Allen's book, actually, is that you get things out of your head and you get it on paper so that it's not in your head anymore. It's somewhere else where you can get at it. So I would suggest maybe keep an undone list and put it on the page and then say, it's on here so I don't have to think about it, and then write a list for today and do that. That's my advice.
Wouldn't that be a super long list?
The undone list?
Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, because life is about what you're not going to do, right? I mean,
That's the wisdom.
every choice you make, you've chosen not to do everything else. When you choose to do that next book, you're choosing what not to do, and that's one of the messages of Steal Like an Artist. Creativity is subtraction. You choose what's important and choose what to leave out because you only get so much time, and that's how you do your work.
Last question for the night coincides with the last chapter of the book of Keep Going, which is about planting your garden.
Yeah.
What are you doing right now to plant your garden?
I'm raising my kids. They'll outlast me. They might outlast these books. I'm trying to, people ask me about legacy. It's like, well, I got 2 of them walking around, now. But I'm trying to put work in the world that I think will last. Our friend Ryan Holiday talks about perennial stuff. I really want to. I want these books to stand up to time. I'm trying to make things that last the same way that I'm trying to raise little adults that can be hardy, in the world. But I think I'm just trying to. I'm really not. I hate the vandalism metaphors that we use for creative work, like make your mark, put a dent in the universe, move fast and break things. This is like the cosmic purpose of humans is vandalism, I want to make work that unites things, that heals stuff up, that, mends or tidies. And I feel like a lot of these books are just taking these ideas that should be together and putting them in together. And I think that my work when I do the newsletter, when I blog and stuff, I'm just trying to put people in touch with these ideas that should be together, and that's what I'm trying to do.
No better way. I want to say thank you to the University of Washington. Thanks for being on the show, bud. Round of applause for Mr. Austin Kleon. Woo! Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight.